Here's what I want you to understand. Every single one of you fundamentally is a professional athlete. Do you know why? Because you compete more than anyone else, but you train less than most people and you almost don't put any energy into your own recovery. What is the difference between a professional athlete and an amateur athlete? Whether it's golf, tennis, football, there's one key distinction.
Fucking money. The difference between an amateur and a professional is getting paid.
So here's what we know. When elite professional athletes perform, they get paid. And the higher they perform, the higher they get paid.
And so right now, when you look at the world's greatest elite professional sports people, what do you see? You see someone who competes. You don't see them train. You don't see them recover. You don't see behind the scenes. You just see them compete.
How many hours a month do you play tennis at a competitive professional level when money's on the line? You might be playing for 24 hours a month. You know, if you've got a whole tournament in 1 week and you get through every single round and you get to the finals, you might play 30, 35 hours in a month.
But then let's look at the flip side of that. What percentage of their life as a professional athlete is spent in training? I'd say 30, 40, 50% or more. So they spend a huge chunk of their time training. They spend a slightly bigger chunk of their time resting and recovery, and a tiny, tiny little piece of time in competition. And without all that training, without all that recovery, they wouldn't be able to compete at the levels that they do. Now you bring in the professional sport of an entrepreneur. So let me ask you,
who competed for at least for maybe 50 to 60 hours last week, 70 to 80 hours last week?
From 8 a.m. to fucking 6 p.m. most days, from 9 to 5 most days. That's when you're competing. What professional sportsman on the planet can do that? If you're a professional athlete as a tennis player, if you're playing 8 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, every day of the month, what would eventually happen? You burn out. Who here's burnt out before? It's incredibly common. As a business owner, you need to know how to stop. It actually takes grit to stop. It actually takes discipline to stop. It takes discipline to rest. You got to start thinking differently. As an athlete, you have to. Business is a sport. It is the most intense game of fucking sport you will ever play on the planet. There is not one sport that comes even close to the level of competition that's required, to the level of application that's required, to the level of training that's required to be a successful professional business athlete. Guess how you get to the elite level? By playing people who are better than you. The goal is in the contrast of seeing someone who's ahead of you and going, wow, what did they do differently? And that's what professional sports people do. When they lose a game, do you think when Federer loses a game, he just, throws his toys out and has a cry, go home and does nothing about it? Or do you think he watches that game over and over to see where his weaknesses were, to see where he made those mistakes? Losing games don't make worse players. Losing games is what creates champions. Success is a poor teacher. Failure is a god. And if you appreciate the job of failure, it gives you exactly what you want. What is it that you want? Skill, knowledge, experience. Why? Because that gives you what you want. That gives you the consequences. And I'm not saying you focused on your failures. I'm saying you analyze them. You look at them, you go, right, I failed. Great. Step one, what's your relationship with failure? Do you have a functional, healthy relationship with failure? Or do you have a dysfunctional relationship with failure? What's a dysfunctional relationship with failure? You fail, you ignore it, you pretend it didn't happen. You become embarrassed by it. You beat yourself up constantly for it when you should be celebrating failure. I celebrate my failures. Why? Because I'm the kind of guy that when I fail, I'm like, fuck yes. And I sit back and I go, what did I learn? What was the benefit of this? What skill, knowledge, and experience did I gain as a result of this failure? And how does this failure make me better, faster, sharper today than I was yesterday? Boom. Can't lose. You either win or you learn. You either win or you learn. There is no second place when you have the right attitude.